part of the bandwagon. So if you're new here, this is a series of events where design mentors come together to provide tips and insights into the how-tos and what should I do's of building and navigating a successful career. And so today we're excited to focus on setting goals and objectives for this fresh new year, 2022. But first, let me introduce myself and then tell you a little bit about our wonderful community. So my name is Ying Yao. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I'm a senior UX designer at Honeywell. In my off hours, I am a design mentor here on ADPList and in the Design Buddies community, as well as the co-organizer of an inclusive design community called Ladies That UX Atlanta. Maybe you're wondering, what is ADPList? So it is a global community for making genuine connections, a platform where people can find, book, and meet mentors from all around the world. And our mission is to foster an inclusive space and support network for designers to come together, learn from each other, and strive to be better. So if you haven't had a chance to check our community out, head over to adplist.org. Some of our community milestones that we're super proud of, we keep these updated so they're fresh. So since ADPList has started last year, we have grown a bunch. We now have over 4,700 mentors on the platform, leading to over 50,000 one-on-one sessions, and have hosted over 600 events tackling a variety of topics, which a lot of them have been recorded and available on our YouTube channel. And then with our platform touching over 70 countries, we're very proud of the global impact we've had on connecting creatives like you all together. Okay, so let me stop that screen share. So we made it through another crazy year. So, and with this comes a fresh start, right? New year, new you, new me. We have all of these big ambitions and grand motivations, right? But how can you make sure that you don't lose that motivational steam come February, and ensure that your goals are not only attainable, but also authentic to yourselves and what you want to work towards? So thank goodness we have Cheska and Div here to guide us. So Cheska Marie Figueroa is the Chief of Staff at GigaCover, and Div Manikam is not only a mentor, but also an author and an explorer. So really excited to have them here for our first event of the year. And so with our event today, it's going to be a little bit of a guided discussion, then a presentation heavy experience. And then after that, we'll have time for our favorite audience Q&A with our speakers. So if you have any burning questions throughout the event, please use our Pigeonhole link that will drop in the chat for you to submit and also vote on your favorite questions. I think we're doing our signature selfie, right, Mishope? Checking in. Yes?
Yes,
okay.
we are.
Yes. Solid, thank you. So our signature selfie / family portrait time, our first one of the year. So we would love you all to turn on your camera, show us your brightest smiles, your happiest faces, or not, whatever you're feeling, you do you, vibe yourself out. And we're gonna do a picture time. So whenever you're ready, hit it, Mishope.
No worries. Thank you so much. So please let's see those smiling faces, like, first selfie of the year. And so I'll take you screen by screen. So please hold that pose. Going on screen 1 and go. Okay, thank you so much. Now I'm going to screen 2 and go, screen 3 and go, and screen 4 and go. So back to you, Ying.
We just keeps getting better every time when we do that. All right, we have that we have the picture taken, and what I like to call, hang it on our digital wall. Let's get started. Cheska and Div, if you can unmute, give yourselves an introduction, tell us a fun fact about yourself, who you are, what you're all about.
Awesome. I could go first. Hi, everyone. My name is Div Manikam. I am, as Ying shared, a mentor, an author, and an explorer, trying to figure out what a portfolio life would look like. And I'm really honored to be here, kicking off the new year with this career success session. I have about 10 years of experience as a product marketing leader across Fortune 500 and startups, and recently started exploring what mentoring would look like with Product Marketing Alliance over the past year, and more recently with ADPList. And I've had some really amazing conversations with my mentees, ranging from guidance on resumes to mock interviews to SOP applications to what is marketing, which was my conversation this morning. And I'm looking forward to supporting more of you as we go forward into 2022 and share some of my lessons learned.
Yeah, thanks for that, Div. So yeah, I think it's my turn to introduce myself. So hi, everyone. I am Chaska Figueroa. So I'm from the Philippines and currently the Chief of Staff for GigaCover. So currently, yeah, I used to be more on the product management side before ultimately I decided to make a really big career shift and focus more on the business side of things and be more of a generalist. So I'm really excited to share a little bit of insights as to how I tackled my career shift, as well as, the different learnings that I now know and wish I knew before going into this kind of career path, right? So yeah, really excited to share what I've learned so far with everyone, as well as Dev. So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you for the intros. And with that, sure, top of mind and everybody is, how do I get started? What are the key elements for setting a path for general success for this new year in 2022?
One thing to think of, and something that I had ventured into, was trying to figure out, who am I? What do I want to be in life? And one of the books that I had read talked to me about this concept called Ikigai, which says, find your purpose in life. And I thought, okay, this is awesome. It'll be as easy as me pointing a dart to the wall and figuring out what my purpose in life is. So as you are thinking about your career success and where you want to be, this is one of those stepping stones of trying to uncover where your sweet spot is, what your Ikigai is. But at the same time, I think what helped me uncover the truth was the first assignment that I had, which was trying to figure out, what are my goals? What are my personal OKRs? How can I help my team? Because one of the first assignments that I had as a leader was performance reviews. As much as I would have liked to know about 4 years ago why we do performance reviews, I realized that it wasn't the best spot to understand what my team's career growth would look like. And so I created this framework called Grow and Personal OKRs to have those conversations on a monthly, bi-weekly basis, as compared to towards the end of the year, knowing that it's already too late to have those conversations. So I think that has been my stepping stone into trying to uncover what it means to take the opportunity to understand better.
Yeah, so I think that's over to me now. Correct me if I'm wrong, Div. So yeah, if you could go to the next slide. Yeah, so for me, this is written by one of my favorite authors, Mike Michalowicz, right? So he actually repurposed Maslow's hierarchy of needs and really looked more into how this applies to businesses. So while I was reading this, I realized that it does make sense, right? That we're working towards sustainable impact, but we never really found ways to really solidify the foundation. So it goes back to the constant question I always have with myself is, how can I give when I cannot get these resources? So yeah, I did my own version of the hierarchy of needs. So next slide, please. Yeah, so basically I repurposed that as well, and really tried to see how I can apply this to career and growth. So yeah, for example, with the sales side, it's basically the creation of cash. So back then, before I could think of anything like stepping up the career ladder or doing volunteer work or basically anything, I had to make sure I had enough income to meet my basic needs. So that could be rent, food, all these things, right? and whether or not this could help me achieve my short-term goals. Now, after that, once, more or less I'm there, I went to the profit stage, which is more on the stability. So yeah, we have the work-life balance now. I was starting to develop long-term goals. And during that time, I realized that, okay, I didn't want to be in tech forever. I didn't want to just code forever. I wanted, I found like so much interest and so much passion to actually talking to people, talking to users, talking to the team, trying to build them up. So that's when I realized, okay, I will do a career shift. But, with that comes a lot of other issues, right? So I had to go back to the first stage and try to see, do I have enough runway to actually make this shift? Because I can't expect myself to be in the same level as I was in tech and when I do shift on the business side of things. So yeah, a lot of that, I had to take some extra freelancing jobs at first, just to make sure I have all the resources I need to make that shift. And, once I was there again, I applied for a couple of roles. And luckily, my mentor at that time told me that, you can't expect them to give you the same rate that you're making as a product manager as when, you're trying to be more on the marketing or the partnership side, which was true. Because the very company that I wanted to work for didn't offer me a full-time stint. They offered me an internship. So at that time, yeah, I had to think, okay, will I have enough money? Will I have enough resources to even cover rent? So all these things, right, came into play, which I was so grateful for my mentor for kind of giving me that heads up. So yeah, ultimately, I gave myself 6 months. Told myself, okay, I have to make this work. Otherwise, we'll have to go back to square one and kind of start building again from there. So I took the internship. Things went really well. It was not easy, but ultimately, I'm here right now. So I'm on the order stage. So it's really more on the what next. It's me trying to build and going further and further in like the career ladder. And yeah, what next has always been a terrifying and intimidating question for me because we have an inkling on what we want to do in life, but especially with COVID now, right, a lot of things has changed. So this structure really helped me kind of see which areas to tackle first. So if you think about it, prioritizing everything at the same time means you're not prioritizing anything. So it really does help to kind of see and categorize each and every aspect of your visions, your goals, or what you're trying to achieve into certain buckets, right? So yeah, that would be the get stages. So once you have all of that and you're kind of ready to start giving, that's where you start working towards your impact. So for me, how it looked like was starting a nonprofit group here in my country together with a couple of my friends and colleagues, and also trying to, give back what my mentors have given me, and like trying to also express that to the team that I have, to my mentees, and really working towards more of my long-term goals. And as for the legacy stage, to be completely honest, I have no idea what this looks like for me yet. And I'm really excited to kind of work towards figuring it out. And yeah, hopefully you guys would too. It's going to be a really fun and interesting journey for us.
Yeah, Cheska, I love that you're honest about like, I'm not at the very end of my stage yet here. This is what I think it's going to focus on, but still kind of currently in your journey. I'm kind of curious to know, like, as you went through this, how did you, for both of your different frameworks, how did they come to be in terms of like, okay, how do I create more order so that can help with whatever goal that I'm trying to achieve? How did essentially, I guess, what inspiration did you take from in order to kind of create this framework?
Yeah, so I would really suggest everyone to read Mike McCalloway's Fix This Next. Totally helps. It was more on the business side, but as I read on it, resonated a lot with the things I do in my personal life. So with that, we have KPIs, we set OKRs, but sometimes, and I was guilty of this, I put things that really make no sense. For example, my first job was to do partnerships. So what I placed there was, okay, I will do partnerships, but I don't really know what that meant. So yeah, if you go to the next slide, I followed this thing I called the OMEN method. So, oh, that's a different slide. So yeah, so with the OMEN method, it's objective, measurement, evaluation, and nurture. So for objective, it's really on what do I want to happen exactly? Like I have to be as specific as I can be, and trying to really lay out what it is that, you know, this strategy or this task is aiming to achieve, whether it be, I don't know, learning how to cook, or, you know, as simple as decluttering, right? Next would be measurement. That's setting metrics or scoreboards. So how do I know if this is a success or there's a certain level of progress? Next would be evaluation. So we know that, you know, with each strategy, with each task, there will be some red flags to watch out for. And the question is, how many of these red flags do you need to see before realizing that you either need to reassess your strategy or completely pivot to a new strategy? And lastly, nurture, which is the last stage. So let's say you were able to launch without a hitch. But, you know, even in tech, we know that there's no such thing as a constant. There's no such thing as a forever. There will always be new trends. There will always be something new in the market or new behavior. So how are you going to make sure that this strategy adapts to this constantly changing environment? So yeah, this structure really helped me kind of make sure that, you know, my OKRs are still relevant, they're still doable, and they're still pretty realistic in the time frame that I give myself.
Nice. The key thing I'm seeing here is like you have to be able to in a way quantify your goals, right? Or in terms of setting yourself up for success, creating these kind of incremental progress check-ins with yourself to make sure that you're heading in the right direction, but also sanity check. It gives you that affirmation of like, I'm heading in the right direction because I've set these type of measurements or benchmarks or check-ins with myself to make sure that if I need to pivot, if I need to reassess. How do you guys feel about that, of kind of quantifying those goals? You would think it would go against the objective, but I know for me, numbers and being able to measure, being able to quantify gives me clarity to know that I'm heading in the right direction.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, for me, not everything I was able to quantify, to be honest. Some are still as vague as can be. But I think for me, this really helped during COVID, where everyone is kind of doing the whole virtual life thing, right? So at first, it was hard for me to understand or to kind of see that, okay, what I'm doing is right. Because, you know, compared to when we have these face-to-face interactions, people are just saying, oh, Chaska, this is wrong. You know, your math is wrong. But sometimes, like, you know, when you're all alone in your room, or, you know, when you're in your own bubble, it gets to you. Like there will be times where you question, am I doing this right? So those little metrics that I set for myself, doesn't have to be super big, kind of helps you know, calm my anxiety and tell me that yes, this is right, just keep going. Doesn't have to be perfect now, but just keep going. So yeah, at least that's for me.
I would agree. I think it's an important piece, just making sure that the metrics are not what's driving you. You are the ones driving the metrics.
Exactly.
I think that has helped me. When I first started my personal OKRs, my initial goal was to get a promotion. That was like one of the objectives that I had. The second was building my brand and helping put myself through what it means to start writing blogs and articles and sharing some of my experiences and learnings. Because what I was doing, I couldn't find information about it other than me trying to decipher and figure out what it means to become a good leader. And so that, I think, became part of the personal OKRs that I had set. And then also just working with the teams, it gives me confidence that, hey, this process and framework is not just a one person thing. It's something that I've been able to try and test with, I think, over 25 or so people now in my team, as well as just mentees around the world. And every time I go through this framework, it has helped them get clarity into what is it that they want to achieve in their career success, and what does success even look like? Because sometimes what success looks like for me might be totally different for somebody else. Like today, one of my biggest, proudest moments are when, and this is part of my essentialism lifestyle, where if somebody in my group or my team will come and tell me, hey, Div, today I actually blocked my lunchtime and I actually got my lunchtime. And I went for a walk this morning for 60 minutes. Like that's success. That's like a personal OKR that I have for myself and that I encourage everybody to do, because I think we have taken it for granted to just sit in front of the laptop and screen and not really take care of our own selves, right? So little things like that, I think you can take a framework and a process and make it something that is beyond your career, more towards your lifestyle. And I think that's what's helped me, more a reality check than anything.
I love that. And I love that you said in that example that it was on your calendar. I think that's a big thing I've also learned in the past year. Like if it's not on your calendar,
It doesn't
it's
happen.
probably not going to get done. So if you want to prioritize it, have it there so it can give you like ding, that push, that notification to either work on a professional or personal goal. And I also love that it's like you can practice it in your personal life. Actually, it's probably more important, especially with the past couple of years, to practice it in your personal life too. And so I guess also a heads up to everybody, I hope you're screenshotting these because they're essentially like giving you a framework here. But I also want to, if you can, Div, go back to your framework too, so we can also spend a little time looking at that too. I want to, grow personal OKRs too. Like, how have you kind of communicated this to people that you've talked to, kind of like broken it down to them?
So I brought two frameworks, and this is where I like to think of myself as an alchemist, kind of bringing two or more items together and making it more meaningful. The Grow framework was something that I learned at a Dell leadership conference, and I was like, oh, this is brilliant. Why did I not have this throughout my 10 years of career? Because it gave me something as simple as having that career growth conversation. And it only came into existence when I asked the question, why do we do performance reviews the way we do it? And so as managers and as leaders, what I encourage everybody, and even if you are not the leader, you have somebody that you are working with, you could bring something like this to them. And I literally have a screenshot of what my two objectives are and what my two key results are as a screenshot. And I shared it with my manager and said, hey, for me, this promotion is important. Like I am looking to become a director in the next 6 months. And I was not having that conversation after the 6 months to find out that that was not in his priority at all, right? So having communicated that upfront helped. And then also telling him that for me, building my brand was important. So my leader gave me the opportunity to do speaking sessions at our product keynote. And he was like, hey, you helped me build this presentation. Why don't you do 10 minutes of the presentation? And it started helping me build my own confidence. So having something written down, and I truly believe in the power of this, having something written down gives you the confidence and just the clarity that you need, that, okay, this is important for me and I need to spend and devote time. Like this afternoon, one of my mentees, one of the things that we had was on career skill development. And we said, okay, continuous learning is important, right? So these three check boxes on the right that you're seeing, career growth, role alignment, skill development, were just things that were important for me and were important for the folks that I was talking to. So we talked about continuous learning and said, what do you want to learn? And we talked about, okay, she wanted to learn about artificial intelligence and AI and some of the new machine learning technologies that are out there. And like, what do we need to do that? So we literally, she sent me an invite for Friday, 1 to 3 p.m. so that she can block that time on her calendar to do just that. And so we go down into the process of working through a Google Doc, which is a shared document. And having those conversations, I think, gives them the confidence that yes, they're on the right path. And I just like to think of myself as a guide, shining light on their vision and their clarity that they're looking for. And that's an opportunity and a blessing to have.
Absolutely. And I know on here it says personal OKRs, but what I'm also learning about is you have to be able to communicate the goals that you have for yourself too, right? It's part of the manifesting what you want in your life, right? You have to communicate it, but also communicate it clearly And then there can be allies and advocates and people that can help you along the way to get there. And what I liked about what you just shared there is, oh my gosh, if you're able to like kind of clearly communicate your goals and like how you're tracking towards it, to your leadership or to your manager, you're going to be like a rock star, right? Because you're essentially also making it easy for them to help you, right? To kind of align on like, okay, we can tweak it this way, we can get you in the right direction. So
and they can have that conversation of, hey, you're not there yet, and here are the 3 things you need to do to get there, right? I've had a very tough conversation with one of my team members only to find I literally have this color coded as red, yellow, green just to see status check where we are. And my first conversation with one of my team members, everything was a red or a yellow. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be a terrible manager. Like, I'm a terrible leader. What am I doing wrong? And towards through the year, I was able to turn most of those reds to yellows and the yellows to green. And that itself was a success because the person was in a role where they were not getting to do certain things that they wanted to. And I was able to get them to move from a product marketing role into a product manager role. And now they are just flying with colors, right? Like that's where the true power of something like this comes to life, where you can be like, it's not just about a document or putting something out there. It's about making those changes that need to happen. You can bring the shift truly. So yeah, it's something that I started in 2018, and to this day, I will breathe in it and live in it as much as I can. It's one of the conversations that I have with most of my mentees.
That's great. And sorry. Go ahead, Jessica.
Yeah, I also just wanted to add, right, with the whole topic of communication, I think that it's actually a very key piece that we all need to understand if we want to get to where we want to be. So previously, talking to bosses, talking to managers, talking to our mentors can get really intimidating. So before I put off all these, I would say at that time was a difficult talk, just really for them to understand what I wanted to do with my career. So, I told myself, I'll find the perfect time. I'll let it sit. I'll let it kind of cook, And then I realized, there's no such thing as the perfect time. You make that yourself. And, I wasted so much time just trying to find that perfect time, when eventually, you get to a point where you're just frustrated and like, you know what, let's do it. And I talked to my mentor at that time, and I was like, oh, it wasn't so bad. Like, okay, it was this easy. Like, when I told him that, yeah, I wanted to be more in the leadership role, it was so straightforward. Like, okay, then let's get you to from here to here. This is what we do. We can try to see which areas you need help more on, and everything was it just felt like a puzzle piece. Like it was so perfect that it was like, why did I wait this long?
Yeah,
That's
definitely
so
a
true.
hard +1 on that. Like,
Yeah.
I've learned that good is always going to be better than perfect, right? You can lose, like you said, valuable time or insight if you don't communicate it or share with somebody. So it's definitely like, take a stab, take a try on a first draft of like what you think those goals are, what you want to work toward. This is what you find important, and then get some feedback from somebody. And sometimes that feedback is it's gonna sting, it's gonna hurt a little bit, but it's like a clear thing of like, hey, it's not bad. It means like you can still grow towards this, right? You can still work toward it.
100%. And I just shared in the chat some of my personal OKRs, and you'll see from 2018 to 2021 how that has evolved. It's also a good self-reflection for how your career success also changes over time. And it's always, when you look back, you're like, oh yeah, totally. Those roles and jobs were all meant to happen because you are where you are today. But it's always a good learning experience for sure.
Yeah. So I do want to ask, out of everything that you've like soaked in and made part of like your process, what's been like the biggest learning in your career that's made like the biggest impact of this like overall framework or this overall process?
Go ahead, Jessica.
No, you go first. You go first, Deb.
So one of the things I think has been my biggest learning is trying to understand who I am. And what you're seeing on the screen is what another concept that I learned from a sales leader called a picture perfect introduction, or this is what I like to call it now. But the idea is visualizing who you are and what you stand for. And I've been trying to understand, what does success mean for me? What does happiness mean for me? And most recently, I had an opportunity to try to uncover what stress and anxiety is. Before, as a leader, nobody really talked about it as much. And I always struggled with trying to understand what everyone says. Yeah, keep pushing the boundaries, keep pushing the limits, and trying to get uncomfortable. And I didn't realize that it got to a point where it got really difficult for me. And so I had to take some steps to take care of myself, but also trying to figure out what is it that I am, me. I love photography. I love taking care of just walking and enjoying the scenery around me. And I think while I enjoyed the fast pace of life and everything that came with it when I lived in San Francisco, one of the reasons and one of the things that helped me when I moved to Raleigh, North Carolina, was changing the pace of life and asking what truly matters. So I think that is probably the biggest learning that I've had over the past 10 years. And the things like inspire, influence, and impact kind of became who I am. Like that's like my bedrock, my values, and what makes me me. And I had a chance to kind of share all of that experience. So I think that's part of the learning experience that I look forward to. It doesn't matter what process or framework you're bringing, just ask the question and challenge the status quo. So the photo of the ducks or in the middle, you see all of them kind of rowing in the same direction. There's one in the middle that's like, no, I want to go the other direction. That's probably me. Because I always challenge the status quo, and I'm always asking, why do we do certain things the way we do? And that's the only reason why all of these questions and these frameworks came into existence. So I always encourage everybody to just step back a little. Sometimes you might walk on a street and be like, oh, I walk the street every day and it looks the same. Just if you walk on the right side, walk on the left side, and you'll see a different perspective. And that's what I encourage everybody to think of. Your perspective can change just by changing the side of the street. That's true for anything, any experience. And one of the joys that I've had of traveling around the world has helped me, and you'll see all the postcards on the back of my wall, has given me those perspectives to actually not just take things for granted. I did see there were a lot of folks from Peru, and I send my love to all of you, because that was the last place that I was before the pandemic hit. So thank you all for everything that you do. I think this is definitely a true blessing and an opportunity to be here.
Yeah, that's amazing, Dev. Yeah, so I resonate completely with what you just said. And for me, one of the key learnings that I had over the years, right, not just pre-pandemic and even during the pandemic, I was able to kind of put it all on 3 pillars. Mm-hmm. So generally, it's all about striking a certain balance, right? Not only at work, but also within yourself. So it's not always having to be constantly on the go. Sometimes it's good to take a step back, breathe, and just do you, for once or for a couple of times. So for me, it's all about the balance between action and compassion. So, you have to understand that every decision, every action that you do has a certain impact. It might not be big for you, but for some, it might be huge. Like, for example, just giving 5 minutes of your time to your colleague who, had questions. To you, it's 5 minutes. Okay, it's something that you do all the time. So sure, it's not that big of a deal, but for your colleague, that 5 minutes was all it took to help her or him kind of get through the week, for example. Next would be grit and grace. So grit is basically what you're going to do, and grace is generally how you're going to do it. So I guess it's more on the optic side, right? When you do things, you're not always going to be the most popular person in the bunch. You could be a devil's advocate, but it's how you deliver it that will make all the difference. Again, it goes back to communicating. And lastly, of course, it's empathy and accountability. I think as I'm trying to create more of a leadership role for myself, I realize that yes, you can be like empathic or empathetic rather to your team. You can be, you can understand their circumstances. You can be generally like really understanding to where they are at. But that doesn't mean that you can't hold them accountable for the responsibilities. So I think that's I guess that's one of the hardest so far that I had to kind of strike a balance with. But ultimately, it does wonders. Sometimes I'm always afraid to be the bad cop, but sometimes tough love, man, tough love works. So yeah.
I know tough love has worked well for me, and it comes from, most of the time it comes from a good place, and you kind of have to hear it straight. I love that both of you have kind of defined your core values with just like a few words here, but also visually, you've had like essentially like a slide deck, like a small space to put in visuals what is really valuable to you. So maybe for those of you that are thinking of like, oh, I'm not sure, I have like a general motivation, but I'm not sure what my goals are or how to align them with my values. I think this is a great inspiration from Cheska and Div to like set time to maybe create your own personal, I guess, mood board or Pinterest board here of like, what are the things that I know are really valuable to me or that I believe or I think I want to strive towards, put it all here. And then this is essentially like your little cheat sheet to talk about yourself or to kind of start manifesting and working toward those goals. I mean, I think that's the first thing I had to me. I was like, oh yeah, it's very visual. It's very impactful. So I love that both of you also put it together to kind of explain who you are, share it with everybody, and then communicate your values in that way.
Yeah, there's something very powerful about visuals. I think all the designers on the call as well will appreciate it, is giving a sense of, what's the saying? A picture speaks 1,000 words or something along those lines. So it I think started off like that. My first visual picture perfect that I had was just travel. Like that was it. I was like, who am I? I'm the traveler, like I'm the explorer. And then it manifested into different shapes and forms. So yeah, it's just beautiful kind of seeing your life journey through these transitions as well.
Yeah, I could also see, like thinking of strategically, this is also a great kind of intro if you are in an interview or just conversation with somebody.
I actually did. Two of my jobs since I piloted this was part of my interview. So when they asked me, hey, so tell me a little bit about yourself, especially because it's all Zoom calls, I'm like, sure, let me bring up my screen. And so I would just basically have this as an image and walk them through. And one of my interviews, I connected with my leader, who's a Lenovo veteran for 25 years. And she was like, this is the first time I've ever seen anything like this. And I loved your style of telling your story. And we actually bonded over flowers because I had flowers on my card. And she was like, oh, I haven't told this to anybody in the company. And I've been here for 25 years. But I actually love flowers too. And I actually take a photo of them and draw them. And I was like, wow, for somebody that just met me like 20 minutes ago to share something that deep, I was touched and I got the job and I was like, I must have done something right. So there is really power in these visuals. I've had a few mentees of mine share that they actually went through their interviews, and one recently, actually she's moving to Atlanta to join Microsoft. And she was like, hey, Div, your picture perfect introduction, I used it for my interviews and it works like a charm. And I was like, oh, thank goodness.
That's awesome. Yes. You guys,
I will tell you, it's tested. People love something different from what you usually see. And sometimes you don't really have to communicate all the message in the story, in that slide. It does its job for you. And so, yeah, I would love for all of you to give it a shot, and would love to see yours too.
That's awesome. You heard it here, tried and tested, and it's very impactful. I think it's fun too to kind of like, I got this blank space. How do I want to quickly communicate myself with that classic tell me about yourself question? Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I want us to start moving into some of the audience questions that we're getting in, and keep them coming too, guys. We're going to try to see how many we can answer by the end of the session. And the first one that we had the most votes so far. So this is from Victoria, and they had asked, how do you deal with the job hunting process and what are your strategies? So taking what you've learned in terms of defining those personal OKRs and like how have you overall kind of applied it to job hunting process? Because I know like I know a lot of people are like looking for their like first job or just job in general, which is a very big goal. So how do you kind of like apply your framework to that overall ambition?
Yeah, I think I'll take this one. So for me, especially when I shifted career, right? Like I had not I had probably 2-3% of the skills required to be in partnerships or marketing, because all my life I've always been in product management. I've always just done coding, so I had no clue. So what I did was with the framework that I'm now constantly using, right, is I read the description or job description. I understood it. I was trying to see, okay, what skills would be required. I list them all down. What skills do I have now? What skills can I quickly learn, or at least have that basic know-how? If they hire me, at least it's already there, because it's not really a quick learn, but it's easy to kind of get started. And what would be the skills that will take some time, some effort, and and a lot of guidance to kind of develop. So I loop them all in 3 buckets. I try to see if I know if they posted who the recruiter was. If it was on LinkedIn, I would try to see if I could schedule even just a really quick call just to understand the role a little bit more. From there, I will also try to assess in terms of experience in the job, how flexible are they? Are they okay with someone who is sort of starting out? Just really trying to see where the company is at, right? Or do they want someone senior right away? If they want something senior or someone senior, but this is something that you're passionate about, you really resonate with the company, I try to see if there are other opportunities that would fit my skill set at that time. So negotiation in a job doesn't only mean negotiating your salary. It's also negotiating basically your responsibilities as well, or like how how you can be of value to the company. So yeah, I think I've had very interesting role titles. If someone asked me like at that time, what is a growth hacker? To be honest, I don't exactly know either. You're kind of just in certain places, but visuals, this is what I do. This is how I would operate, or this is the value that I bring to the company. So yeah, that's it for me.
Awesome. I love that. And I think, Cheska, one thing to add to what you said would be don't just limit yourself, right? I think most of us would look at a role and say, oh, I don't have all the skill sets that they're looking for. The reality is, having been on both sides, I know that a job description is just a coverall for everything that the role could possibly do. But now when I go into an interview, my first question to the manager would be, I have a good understanding of what you're expecting from the role. And that's pretty much overall what you're looking for the role. But in the first 30, 60, 90 days, what are you looking for this role to help you with? That will give you the clarity of, is this a role that has like super important requirements, or is there a specific cover that they're looking for, right? So that would be one piece. One that I have seen is called jobscan.co, where you can look at your resume and the job description, and it'll tell you how close your job description is to your resume keyword wise. So it's kind of like an ATS scanner, but it gives you a good outline. I've had a few of my mentees leverage that, and it has given them the clarity that they needed to understand if what they have is similar, and also help tweak their resume so that they can get more job opportunities and actually get through the ATS system, which is the applicant tracker. Because if you don't pass through that, it's hard for you to get into the first interview process itself.
Yeah.
I love that.
Adding to what Div said, right? Depending on what industry or what role you're trying to apply for, you kind of have to make sure that your CV applies or it relates to that, because one thing or one mistake that I've done while I was trying to shift through the business side, right, was my resume was heavily focused on the tech side. That, oh yeah, I know how to code, I do this, I do that. So ultimately, instead of them offering me, like marketing or partnerships jobs, they offered me tech jobs. I'm like, this was not the point. So now I realized while I was job hunting, I had so many versions of my CV. So some would, for example, my experience in product management, how was I able to relate that to marketing, for example? So basically, it's about optics. It's about communicating what you want. It might not always be easy, but yeah, the visuals really do help.
It's I think we've heard from multiple mentors too, especially when we're talking about like resumes, where it's balancing quantity with quality in terms of not just like submitting the same type of resume into the application portal and then kind of hoping and praying, but like what are these things, small things that you can do to really optimize or just improve your chances of getting picked up either from the ATS or from like a human person that's going through those resumes. So kind of taking the time to make this resume fit well with that company, to be like, oh yeah, this is good. Let's give them a shot. Let's get them on a call and then kind of get them into the next round of that opportunity there. Yeah. Now we have another question here. So this is from Mike, and they had asked, how do you deal with imposter syndrome when trying to advance your career? Classic imposter syndrome, especially when it is, I know we like to focus on a lot of like resources and help on like junior and entry level. And it's always important, right? Helping people get into the industry, but it's also important to think about what does mid to senior and beyond level look like? And how do you handle that type of ambition with also managing imposter syndrome, which a lot of people experience, especially in the past couple of years too?
Yeah, so one thing that really helped with imposter syndrome for me and a couple of my mentees was in the workplace, especially those that work directly with you, right? I kind of got them as my accountability partner. So during the times where imposter syndrome is impossible to deal with, I go up to them, I ask them like, okay, this is what I'm supposed to do right now. This is what I have so far. Give me feedback. And not just the feedback na, oh, you're doing great, the whole toxic positivity thing, no, but actual feedback, like very concrete, criticize, go, so that at least I know that, okay, this part is, I'm doing this right, this one needs improvement, this one is completely wrong. So that kind of helps, I would say alleviate that imposter syndrome and just make it more humanize whatever it is you're worried about, right? Because sometimes you're worried about nothing, sometimes you're worried about something but not quite there, or sometimes you're genuinely worried about the right things. So it just humanizes the whole paranoia or the whole anxiety that you're not able to communicate well.
Yeah, and just knowing that imposter syndrome will always be there. Doesn't matter what role, what level you get to. If you are flexing your muscles and actually challenging yourself for the next thing, it will always come to you. It doesn't matter how many speaking sessions you've done, it will come to you. Doesn't matter how many articles you've written, the next time you write, it will come to you. But just know that it's there and accept it and get comfortable with that is probably what has helped me to be like, I hear you. I know I don't have all the answers, and that's okay. But as long as I'm asking the right questions and challenging myself on getting uncomfortable one more time, that's the only thing that matters. So that's a little bit about imposter syndrome. I know there's a really good Amy Cuddy video that talks about the power pose. And every time I feel like my imposter syndrome comes up, I try to do the Amy Cuddy power pose. If it is me going into a leadership presentation or going for a keynote or whatever it is, right? So trying to figure out and have your own accountability circle in some way helps, because we're all navigating through the same challenges in life, and just having somebody to talk to has always been my biggest help that I've had.
I love it. The power pose.
Mhm.
I know I don't know if everyone believes it, but I think it's worked well for me. I'm actually standing right now. And I
Which
know
is perfect. Yeah.
that's helped me with like kind of boosting a little bit of like my confidence if I had to like give a presentation or have to do like interviews where it's like if I'm standing, it's like, oh, I'm ready for action. And the benefit of like people hear your voice more clearly too, because when you sit down, it's like you sound kind of casual and relaxed. And if you think about it, your lungs or your chest is a little more compressed, but when you're standing, it's like
It's
kind of give your
open.
full attention, you're open. And Jessica, I love that you had said talking to somebody, because I know for me, for imposter syndrome, it's all in my head, right? It's all very messy and ambiguous and nebulous. But having to talk to somebody who can give you kind of that clear feedback, it is so kind of just like brushes away the cobwebs, right? Of like, okay, you're mostly wrong. You got this. I know you've done this before. You're great at this because I've seen you do this. And just like, okay, you're kind of right about this, but you can work on this, right? That clarity that will help you with kind of working towards that kind of messy feeling, because you know there's steps that you can take to kind of move beyond it. So it's like, yeah, whenever I'm a little like too deep in that feeling, I need to call my squad or whoever, the friends I can talk to just get a gut check, right? Like, am I crazy for feeling this, or can I get your thoughts on it? It's very helpful to hear from just another human being.
Exactly. And I think one thing that I won't say suffered, but I had difficulty with is being okay with not being perfect. I think to some degree we're all a little bit more of that perfectionist, and you realize there is no such thing as perfect. What you need to strive for is to be better, not be perfect.
I love that. Better, not perfect.
Mhm.
I think we have time. Maybe we can get into one more question. So this is from Anthony. What piece of advice would you give yourself if you could go back in time at the start of your career? And how do you challenge yourself to maintain that momentum?
Yeah, so for me, this was actually in my presentation earlier, was and it's only recently that I was able to put everything into words. So it takes a very unique person or group of people to open doors for you. It takes a special bunch to actually help you get your foot in that door. But ultimately, it's you and only you who can completely step inside that door. So I think right now that's kind of like the I would say the mantra that I've been telling myself, that all these opportunities are there. You just need to find that group of people, that special group of people who will help you open and get your foot in that door. But ultimately, you decide if you want to go in that door, right? So yeah, that's I guess one of the advices that I wish I knew previously, because I always like to do things myself.
Mhm.
Well, we know that that's not going to work. So yeah.
Nice, Dev.
I think for me, I'll go with this quote, primarily, which probably contradicts the question that you had. But it's one of those things where I always thought that certain things have to happen a certain way. And if it didn't, I would think that, oh no, I failed, or I've not been successful. And I would mark myself down in my career ladder that I'd created, just because that's what was the norm. And everyone said, hey, there's a career ladder that you need to climb. But then I realized that it doesn't really matter what happened in the past. And most of my roles, as much as I wanted to get into product marketing, it was after 2 or 3 roles that I finally got into product marketing, because I had that focus that's where I wanted to get to. But before getting there, I was a marketing communication specialist. I was a sales enablement manager. I was a BI analyst. And if you had told me, hey, do all these roles and you'll get to product marketing, I would be like, no way, that like those things don't add up to product marketing. I should get to product marketing. And so this quote is something that I hold very near and dear to my heart. You can't go back and change the beginning, but you can start where you are today and change the ending. And I'm here to change my ending, whatever that ending is, or ongoing state is. And this is a quote from C.S. Lewis that I think has helped me shape who I am and give me the confidence that it's okay if certain things don't happen the way it is. There was something I was reading recently where they said, that's not failure, that's just an unexpected turn. And I think if this past couple of years has taught us anything, it's just an unexpected turn. We'll finally get back to where we need to get back to. And I truly believe in that. So I'll probably share that as my closing.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much. And we're at the top of the hour, the end of the event as well. So we weren't able to get to everyone's questions, but Cheska and Div are reachable after this as well. They are, fellow mentors on adplist.org. And so you can always connect with them afterwards and kind of talk a little bit more about what are some of your personal goals that you have this year. And then maybe they can help you turn them into, actionable steps that you can take. So with that, everyone, I want everyone to go crazy in the chat. Please thank Cheska and Div for sharing their personal stories and their strategies with us, for sharing their time with us. Give it up for our speakers. Thank you guys so much for
Thank
coming.
you all. It was lovely to be here with all of you.
Yeah,
Thank
you got this,
Jessica,
guys.
for being a true
2022.
partner, and thank you, Ying, for hosting this for us.
Oh no, this is so fun. Like 2022, it's in the bag. You got this, whatever you're trying to go for. You just gotta take steps to make sure that you can make you progress toward it and are able to achieve it. So with everybody here, thank you so much for coming. Be happy, be safe, and we'll see you all soon. So we'll be here as you move on with your day. If it's the morning, good morning. If it's middle of the night, hope you get some rest. I know some people tune in at 3 a.m. So thank you so much for sharing your time with us.
Thank you all. Happy New Year and have a wonderful time.
And Happy New Year. And this will also be available on YouTube too, if you want to share with your friends. Oh, good. Yes. And we have links to Cheska and Div's mentor list too, so you can grab time with them. And with that, so the speakers, me, and anyone else on the team will hang around afterwards and do a quick postmortem.